the town that forgot how to feel. There used to be laughter in Grayridge. You could hear it from the diner at the corner of Main Street, where the smell of burnt coffee mixed with the hum of the jukebox. The mines had closed years ago, but people still waved at each other, still believed in better days. On Sundays, the church bells rang like they always did. Nobody noticed that the echoes had started to sound hollow. The first pill bottles arrived in '98. They came in small white boxes, neatly stacked behind the pharmacy counter of Whitman's clinic. OxyContin, for moderate to severe pain. The reps wore shiny suits, carried clipboards, and smiled like they were selling hope. They said the pills were safe. Less than 1% addiction risk, they promised. People wanted to believe them. Grayridge had been built on pain, back pain, knee pain, lung pain, the kind that never left after decades in the mines. The pills worked. They dulled the aches, quieted the ghosts. For the first time in years, men went back to work without groaning. Mothers slept through the night, and the town exhaled. But the thing about painkillers is they don't kill pain. They just teach it to whisper. By 2002, the laughter was gone. The diner closed, the church was half empty, and the sheriff's radio crackled with the same message every week. Possible overdose, Maple Street. Send an ambulance. Evelyn Moore was the town's nurse. She'd spent 20 years delivering babies, stitching up cuts, and comforting families when the mines took another father too soon. But lately, her hands had started to shake. Her son, Kyle, had been prescribed the pills after a football injury. Just for the pain, Dr. Whitman had said. Now, 3 years later, he was unrecognizable. The boy who once outran everyone in the field now slept with hollow eyes and tremors in his jaw. Evelyn would find him staring at the ceiling, sweating, whispering that he could hear his bones scream. She tried to wean him off. She tried prayer, detox teas, even locking him in his room. But the sickness came like a flood. And when the flood recedes, it always takes something with it. Pastor Jim Carter still rang the church bell every Sunday, even though no one came. He'd watched the pews empty, funerals multiply, and offerings shrink. He said he used to preach about sin, but lately he just preached about sorrow. Sin, he said once, isn't what they told us it was. Sin is the system that teaches you to profit off another man's weakness. The congregation didn't clap. There was no one left to clap. Dr. Whitman sat in his office, staring at the company's latest brochure. It was printed on thick, glossy paper. Your patients deserve relief. Give them OxyContin, the compassionate choice. Every month, a man in a tailored suit would visit from the company, Purdue Pharma. He'd hand out pens, take him to dinner, talk about bonuses and market growth. He'd say, "Doc, this isn't about money. It's about helping people live without pain." Whitman wanted to believe that, but he couldn't ignore the empty chairs in his waiting room, or the young men he'd once treated now turning up in body bags. He started skipping conferences, ignoring calls. He'd begun to dream of water, deep, black water, pulling him under. By 2006, Grayridge was a ghost. Main Street was lined with pawn shops and payday lenders. The old pharmacy was boarded up, but the pills hadn't stopped. They just changed hands. Sheriff Dale Harper had been on the force for 25 years. He used to spend his nights chasing drunks and breaking up bar fights. Now, his cruiser was a hearse on wheels. He knew everyone he arrested. He'd grown up with them, ate at their tables, coached their kids. But the law was the law. And the law didn't care if the addict was your neighbor. He stopped wearing his badge off duty. Felt like a lie. The town started holding meetings, community recovery, they called it. Evelyn went every week. They'd sit in the high school gym, plastic chairs scraping against the floor, coffee brewing in a dusty corner. The same faces showed up every time. Mothers without sons, sons without fathers, and a few people still pretending they could fix it. A young woman stood up one night and said, "They told us these pills would take away our pain, but they took away our families instead." No one argued. Evelyn went home that night and sat by Kyle's bedside. He was pale, sweating, mumbling for another pill. She held his hand and said, "You don't need it, baby." He looked at her with glassy eyes and whispered, "Mom, I need to feel normal. But in Grayridge, normal was long gone. Then came the night that broke everything. It was cold, January cold, the kind that freezes your lungs before you can scream. Evelyn came home from a night shift and found Kyle slumped on the floor, blue lips, still clutching a bottle that wasn't even his prescription. She screamed his name until her throat tore. The paramedics came, the sheriff came, the neighbors came, but no one could bring him back. At the funeral, only 12 people showed up. Pastor Jim read a verse about forgiveness, but his voice cracked halfway through. Evelyn didn't cry. She couldn't. She just stared at the coffin and thought, if I start crying now, I'll never stop. 2 weeks later, she went to see Dr. Whitman. He looked older, tired, his tie missing, his desk a graveyard of patient files. When he saw her, he whispered, "Evelyn, I'm so sorry." She placed a small brown bag on his desk. Dozens of orange bottles, labels worn off, caps cracked. "You did this," she said softly. "You didn't mean to, but you did." Whitman's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was helping." "I know," she said. "That's what makes it worse." Then she turned, walked out, and went home. That night, she built a fire behind her house and threw every pill bottle she could find into the flames. The plastic melted, the smoke rose thick and black, and for the first time in years, she felt something. It wasn't peace, but it was real. The town tried to move on. The government sued the drug companies. Reporters came, took pictures of empty streets and tired faces. They called Grayridge a casualty of corporate greed. But the cameras always left and the people stayed. Pastor Jim stopped preaching. He said he'd said everything that needed saying. Sheriff Harper retired early. Dr. Whitman moved away. No one knew where. Evelyn stayed. She reopened the clinic not as a nurse but as a counselor. She'd sit with the new kids coming in, scared and shaking, and tell them, "You can't kill pain. You can only face it." And every evening, as the sun set over the hollow hills, she'd look at the empty houses and whisper a prayer. Not for forgiveness, but for memory. Because forgetting was how it all began. They say Grayridge is healing now. New families have moved in. The old diner's been repainted. The church bell rings again on Sundays. But if you listen closely, when the wind blows through the valley, you can still hear the echo of what was lost. The laughter that once filled the air. The voices of people who thought they were safe. And maybe that's the real story of America. Not the wars or the flags, but the small towns that learned the hard way that pain can't be erased, only transformed. As Evelyn likes to tell her patients now, the opposite of pain isn't comfort. It's feeling. And for the first time in a long time, Grayridge feels everything.